The whole thing kicks off back in 1865 out in Missouri, right after the Civil War finally wraps up and everyone's trying to figure out what's next. These 5 guys on horses show up at a quiet farmhouse out in the sticks, looking like they mean business. They run into a young kid named Jamie Hedges, who's just minding his own business working the land and trying to keep the place running. The head honcho of the crew introduces himself as Sergeant Merritt Harknett, acting all polite but you can tell he's a snake. Harknett starts yapping, telling Jamie that him and his boys served with Jamie's brother, Josiah Hedges, during the big fight. He claims they were all Union Army buddies, but Jamie's a little thrown off because he figured Josiah would have been right there with him if they were such good pals. Then Harknett drops the hammer and tells the kid that Josiah's dead, but it's obvious he didn't just swing by to say sorry for his loss. He claims Josiah ripped him off for $1,000 before he kicked the bucket and says the cash is sitting in some fancy gold jewel box. Jamie knows a rat when he sees one and calls the guy a straight-up liar, pointing out that Harknett's the son of a rich senator and wouldn't be trekking all this way for a measly $1,000. Harknett doesn't budge and demands the box again. And to show he ain't playing around, a guy named Little Bill shoots Jamie's dog right then and there. Jamie tries to fight back and grabs a heater he's got stashed, but he misses his shot and Harknett puts a bullet in both of his knees so he can't go nowhere. They decide to torch the whole place with Jamie still inside, leaving nothing but smoke and ashes. Later that night, Josiah Hedges, who ain't dead at all, pulls up to find his brother burned up and hanging from a rope. He's crushed, but he keeps his face straight and prepares for war. 2 months go by and Josiah, now going by the name Edge, rides into a town called Seward over in Kansas. He sees a sign where someone painted the word hate, which tells you everything you need to know about this dump. The streets are a ghost town because everyone's at a public hanging for a guy who spit at the sheriff. Edge runs into 2 of Sheriff Big Bill's goons who tell him to hand over his rifle, but Edge ignores the noise. Things get hairy. Edge takes out the deputies and saves the prisoner by shooting the rope. Big Bill is impressed by the brass on this guy and offers him a job as a deputy instead of hanging him. Edge takes the badge, but he's only there for one thing: payback.
Deputy Bean here is going to show you the ropes.
We understand each other, Mr. Hedges.
While Deputy Bean starts giving him the grand tour of the neighborhood, he drags Edge past the old church ruins. Bean spills the beans about the town's nasty history, explaining that an underground railroad used to run through the place where folks would pay in gold to get a ticket north. But the guy running the show 4 years back was a real piece of work. He pocketed the gold, locked everyone inside, and torched the building. Edge just listens to the story of the hit job, keeping his thoughts to himself as they walk the pavement.
Don't be scared, Jamie. In this here, it ain't
Look like you got the Blue Devils. I'll show you.
Well, the name don't mean they ran out of beer.
Edge eventually looks for a spot to crash and hits up the Last Drop Hotel, where a kid named Benny works the desk. While Edge is unpacking his gear, a hip flask with a bullet hole in it falls out of his bag. Benny tries to make a joke about it, but Edge sets him straight, saying the flask belongs to a guy he's currently hunting down. Edge looks out the window and sees crates of fireworks, then takes a look at Benny's sketchbook, telling the kid he's got real talent before tossing him a few coins to look after his horse. As it gets dark, Edge stands out on the roof thinking about his brother Jamie and swearing he's gonna put those 5 bums in the ground one by one.
And I'm gonna send them your way one by one or all in a bunch. Don't matter to me. And I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I should have known they'd come.
Later, he hits the saloon and runs into Beth, that dame from the road who was acting all religious but is now hanging out in a dive bar. She tries to put the moves on him, but Edge isn't buying what she's selling. He spots a painting of Big Bill's kid, Little Bill, and realizes the kid in the picture is one of the guys who hit his farm. Right then, Little Bill's wife Pilar walks in, and the bartender refuses to serve her a drink. Pilar goes to sit with some tough axe at a table, and Edge has to go over and handle the situation when things get aggressive. During the scrap, Edge finds a drawing Benny did of Little Bill, showing a big scar across his face. Since Bill got that scar in the war, Edge knows Benny must have seen him recently, even if the sheriff is playing dumb. Meanwhile, Beth sneaks off to the telegraph office, flashes a Pinkerton badge, and sends a wire saying she's still tailing Edge. Back at the saloon, Edge catches up with Benny and demands to know exactly where Little Bill is holed up, not taking no for an answer.
Now, Little Bill,
Fix up your horses?
where is he?
A terrified Benny finally cracks under the pressure and points his finger toward the ruins of the burnout church. Edge takes the info and heads over there solo, slipping in through a window with his piece drawn, getting ready for a real scrap. He moves like a ghost towards some curtains, but when he yanks him back, he finds Pilar lounging on a bed wearing a metal chastity belt. Before he can even process that weirdness, he hears the click of a heater right behind his ear. It's Sheriff Big Bill, who's been camping out in the shadows waiting for him.
You and I both know why you're here.
The sheriff tells Edge to drop his hardware and starts taunting him, waving the key to Pilar's metal drawers in the air like it's some kind of prize. Edge tells him it ain't his style, so Big Bill hands him back his gun and tells Pilar to beat it. The sheriff claims he sees something special in Edge and wants him to act as muscle for a high-priced cargo move, but there's a catch. Edge has to let bygones be bygones with Little Bill. Their little sit-down gets cut short by gunshots outside, which turns out to be a distraction Pilar set up so she could talk to Edge in private. She begs Edge to help her skip town, but he tells her he's only there to put a bullet in her husband. Desperate, she spills a secret about a mountain of gold buried near the church and says Benny knows the spot. Edge realizes Big Bill has been hanging people just to use the funerals as a cover to dig for the stash. Suddenly, Big Bill shows up and catches them huddling, so Pilar clocks Edge and screams, making it look like he was getting fresh. During the scuffle, she secretly drops a key into Edge's pocket before she takes off. Now framed for a crime, Edge is at the sheriff's mercy, and Little Bill suggests they stretch his neck in the morning. Edge gets hauled off to the cooler, but he uses the key Pilar gave him to pop his cuffs and get loose while the guard is catching some Z's. He corners Pilar and demands to know where Little Bill is, but then he spots some gold nuggets and realizes Benny is the key. They find the kid, and after a nasty flashback about Benny's dad melting gold, Edge rips down a drawing on the wall and finds Benny's fake arm, which is cast out of solid, heavy gold. First thing the next morning, Sheriff Big Bill stomps over to the jail to grab Edge for his date with a rope, but the bird has flown the coop. On the desk, he finds a gold finger and a note from Edge saying if the sheriff wants the rest of the loot, he's gotta send Little Bill out to the town signpost to paint over that word hate. It's a total bait and switch to get the kid into the open. Big Bill decides to play along and sends the kid out, while Edge and Benny are perched up in the hills waiting for the perfect moment to take a shot. As they're waiting, Big Bill pulls a fast one and shows up right behind him in the mountain. He tells Edge he ain't there to protect his kid and even admits he's gotta look out for number one, doubting if Little Bill is even his flesh and blood. He basically gives Edge the green light to take the shot, but when Edge pulls the trigger, his rifle backfires because the goons back at the jail messed with his hardware. The sheriff signals his boys to move in, revealing that Edge was just using Benny as a bargaining chip the whole time. Big Bill whacks Edge in the knee and tells his guys to finish him off. To stay alive, Edge rolls himself off a cliff and ends up slamming into a tree with a big branch stuck right through his gut. Deputy Bean looks over the ledge to check the body, but Edge manages to fire his piece and puts a bullet in Bean's head. The sheriff yells down that he can bake in the sun for all he cares and leaves him there. Edge spends the night pinned to that tree in the pouring rain, losing blood and fighting to stay awake. The next morning, Little Bill shows up at the top of the cliff acting all high and mighty, saying maybe they could have been pals in another life before walking away. Once he's gone, Edge uses every bit of strength to pull that branch out of his side, shoots himself loose, and falls into the river to swim for it. He finds an abandoned house to patch himself up. While back in town, Benny is pinned to the signpost. The sheriff is losing his patience and threatens to torch more people if Benny doesn't spill the beans on the gold. Edge eventually sneaks back into town, busts into the armory, and grabs a fresh rifle and a massive rotary cannon, just as Sergeant Harknett and his crew of thugs roll into Seward. Sergeant Harknett and his crew roll into the middle of Seward like they own the pavement, and they're met by Sheriff Big Bill. These two big shots start trading words, and you can feel the air getting thick with trouble. Harknett is looking for Little Bill, and the sheriff confirms the kid is around, but Harknett makes sure to remind Big Bill who really put the kid in the service. Little Bill finally crawls out of the saloon to say hello to his old war buddies, looking like he's seeing a ghost. When Harknett asks where Josiah Hedges is, the sheriff tells a bold-faced lie, claiming the guy kicked the bucket a few days back. Big Bill tries to flex his muscles about the town rules, but the whole argument gets cut short when a stick of lit dynamite gets tossed right into the middle of the street. The blast sends everyone diving for cover as smoke takes over the joint. Through the haze, the guys see a shadow and start blasting away, only to realize they're shooting at a dummy dressed up like a person. While they're wasting lead on a scarecrow, Edge pushes out a massive rotary cannon and starts raining bullets down on the whole crowd. He steps out to take him on directly, and Benny jumps in to put a bullet in Harknett's arm. Harknett doesn't hesitate and puts the kid down for good. One of the goons starts chasing Edge across the rooftops, but Edge taunts him about the high ground and tosses a firebomb into a drainpipe filled with gunpowder. The whole thing goes up in a blaze, turning the guy into a human torch. Edge keeps up the heat, picking off anyone who shows their face, but he takes a bullet to the foot and goes crashing down from a balcony. He shakes it off, kills the guy who winged him, and sees Harknett ducking into the old church ruins to hide like a rat. Edge heads for the church with a bag of dynamite, but Harknett starts taking shots from the dark, threatening to whack Pilar if Edge doesn't drop his hardware. Edge has to play ball to keep her breathing, so he drops his rifle in the bag of boomsticks. Harknett starts rubbing it in, describing how he burned Edge's brother Jamie alive and enjoyed every second of it. He demands the jewel box one last time, but then Big Bill takes a shot from above and hits Edge in the shoulder. Even with a new hole in him, Edge moves like lightning, tosses a stick of dynamite at the sheriff, and watches as Big Bill trips over a dog and ends up swinging upside down from the church bell ropes. The church bell starts clanging like crazy while Big Bill is swinging upside down, and he starts losing his mind, firing his piece upward to try and blast himself loose. His slugs keep hitting the bell, chipping away the surface to show that the whole thing is made of solid gold, the very treasure he's been hunting for years. He starts laughing like a maniac because the joke is finally on him. But then that dog shows up with a lit stick of dynamite and drops it right next to his head. Big Bill starts crying for help, but Edge doesn't give him the time of day, and the blast ends the sheriff right then and there. Edge gets blown into a pit by the explosion and watches the sheriff's remains go up in smoke. Once the fire dies down, he climbs onto a horse to hunt down Harknett, but the town priest tells him to never show his face in Seward again. In the middle of the street, Little Bill tries to make a break for it, but the townspeople surround him with their rifles out, fed up with all the blood and fire. Edge tries to take the final shot at Harknett, but his body starts giving out and he falls off his horse. Beth rushes over to help, but Edge pins her to the pavement and reveals he knows she's a Pinkerton agent. She warns Edge that the Harknett family runs half the country and he's playing with fire, but Edge doesn't care. Meanwhile, the locals have dragged Little Bill over to the gallows. A woman yells out that Josiah Hedges is back, and Little Bill looks like he's seen a ghost, begging the hangman to just drop the floor already. Edge rolls up and ignores Pilar's crying for her husband's life. Instead of a quick exit, Edge starts putting bullets into Little Bill, taking his sweet time until a final shot to the neck leaves the guy gasping. The weight of the drop finally snaps Little Bill's head clean off, ending the cycle of revenge in Seward. The story jumps to St. Louis, where Merritt Harknett shows up late to a fancy party with a bunch of rich guys. He apologizes for the delay and starts yapping about his time in that dump Seward, showing a letter that promises cash for a new rebellion of the old Confederate states. He swears the South is gonna rise again and mentions a sacred box that'll make the Apache Nation join their cause. When a guy tells him he shouldn't talk about top secret stuff in front of the ladies, Harknett just pulls his heater and guns them all down. He says there's no room for witnesses in this game, reflecting on the night he torched that church while the people inside screamed for their lives.